work biohacking, whether that's breath work, whether that's hot and cold exposure. So maybe touch on the breath work and how that can apply for athletes. Here we're trying to educate, entertain, and inspire that next generation of athletes. And I think the nice part is that we can touch on all of these aspects in a conversation that lasts 45 minutes to an hour. And I also want to provide actionable things for athletes to go out and do and to see results from almost immediately. And I think breath work is something that very few athletes are incorporating.
Totally, man. It's another one of those tools. So right now with me, let's just take a deep breath in, hold it, and then release for 8 seconds. So what we just did was a down-regulated breath, which is something we just consciously did to shift our state, to shift our autonomic nervous system that might have been in a bit more of a sympathetic action, fight or flight mode, into a parasympathetic state. So that's the rest, digest, recover state. Okay. So the power of the breath is something that I'm continually fascinated by, not just due to like the wide varying applications it has, but just to the pure efficacy. Okay. And I've taken every supplement under the sun. I was telling you about some other weird, like the peptide stuff I've done for recovery.
We're going to get into that after.
Oh, awesome. So there's all these like crazy things I've done for like, again, just for this name of either mental performance with nootropics or with, all these like ergogenic aids and herbs and different supplements you can take to try and squeeze more of your performance. But there's nothing I've found more powerful than consciously using my breath before and after working out. So even as an athlete, like you think like we're using our systems, we're using our, there's anything from oxygen, there's anaerobic, aerobic, all these different types of systems we use for energy. And what's so cool about breath work and what I love connecting to is the simplest one. What we just did, like I feel immediately more relaxed after one deep breath. Yeah. And it was shorter on the way in and longer on the way out. And that's something we should actually do after every workout. Okay. So because we can consciously modulate our nervous system with our breath, before working out, we think of what's our nervous system responsible for? Well, that's what recruits the muscles, right? It's like coming from the brainstem, connecting to all the muscles, and you want your nervous system firing so that maximal muscle recruitment is there to lift the weight, to run the sprint, to perform any action with as much accuracy and power as possible. So when your nervous system is primed and in the right state, you're going to perform your best. And that's why, pre-workouts have these like nervous system stimulants, whether it's caffeine or, whatever butane or other of these like exogenous chemicals you can use to artificially engage your nervous system. Right. And even like tyrosine for increasing your dopamine and your dopamine levels, which again, cold tub. Yeah. Not immediately before working out, but just have that baseline increase. I ditched my tyrosine supplement for the cold plunge. Great decision. Sorry, I digress. But what we can do is, so rather than doing something like that short on the way in, long on the way out, we can do what's called upregulated breathing, where we're doing almost like a Wim Hof style, where it can be a circular breathing, or it's just like 3 seconds in, 1 second out, in, 2, 3, out. And we do a round of those. And that's, we're oxygenating our blood and with the breath holds, we can actually saturate more oxygen into our blood. So we're almost like blood doping naturally. Yeah. Super cool for endurance training. We're priming our nervous system because, again, when it comes to weight training, when it comes to swinging a golf club, when it comes to doing any action, we can do it with better muscular coordination and recruitment if our nervous system is in the right state for it. So breathwork as a tool for, those are just two examples of many for even for the energy systems we have. So if you've done any sport where, for me, it was the 300-meter sprint where you're exhausting your anaerobic system, the sprint power that lasts about 10 seconds. Yeah. And then you move into this alactic state where there's no lactic acid production, but we're starting to use our like muscle glycogen for energy. And then this fermentation process happens in our blood where lactic acid is produced, and that's like that burn, like that brutal burn. You'll feel it like a Barry's class sometimes on the sprints, on the treadmill. And that lactic acid production can be offset, delayed, not entirely, but it can be prolonged through things like breath work, where we're actually delaying that from the oxygen and the kind of like the cellular upgrading that's happening on a mitochondrial level. So from like sprints and like sprint power to endurance training, like you can really tap into some next levels of performance just with like specific programmed breath work.
So like mid-workout, 2 hours ago, I'm deadlifting. I move right in from my deadlifts.
What are you deadlifting, man?
Today I did 320, 325, 315, 3x3, little overhand.
3x3, 3 wheels. All right.
3 wheels, double overhand grip. That was a PR for me, I think.
Attaboy.
Yeah, it was like I'll be honest. Gyms were closed over the past year and a half. My physique is not where I want.
Oh man, we're all on atrophy coming out of the cave right now.
Right, and I've been working hard at it. I've got a couple interviews lined up with athletes in the Toronto area. Something I want to incorporate more just than talking, because I think there's so much more value that we can provide. But nonetheless, I'm a little nervous for those workouts with these other athletes because they've been able to train, and it's not to say I wasn't able to. I could still do push-ups and sit-ups and whatever I could at home, but wasn't necessarily the primary focus. Still having to work, do all these other things. So it's getting back up there. We're progressing, but that's the name of the game, right? Like, we're not going to get there overnight, snapping our fingers, but
Totally.
by doing things like this, incorporating breathing into that. So like, let's go back to that. Mid-training, I just did my deadlifts in the middle of doing all of my lunges. If you're telling me if I incorporate specific breath work, my legs are not going to be as sore immediately after, and I'm going to be able to continue to train.
So what would be really important coming off of a heavy workout like that, so hitting a PR, like that's like a very interesting stressor on the body. Like you think about, I've just moved weight that I've never moved before. So the nervous system is like, you're going to be taxed. Your Whoop band might show your HRV drop because there is an adaptation that has to come after doing any physical bout that it's never actually performed before.
Right.
And a really helpful tactic after any workout is, so you think of is to actually like engage that parasympathetic state, and we can do that with our breath. Because if you think about, you're working out, like we're in this like heightened state of arousal where the norepinephrine levels, they're ramped up, our sympathetic nervous system is on.
Right.
We're in this like go mode. But then we really do want to switch into that recovery mode the second that we're done working out.
Gotcha.
And we can do that through doing some down-regulated breathing, like we did with that one breath.
Right.
But you want to do that maybe for 5 minutes even, some down-regulated breathing, because now we're in this like noradrenaline, this ramped like go mode. And then we actually want to like shut that off as soon as we can so that we can enter into that more anabolic rest and recovery state that is only induced, or most favorably induced, through being in a parasympathetic state with our nervous system.
Okay.
When we can start sending the nutrients to our body, when we can start getting into rest, when we can, well, as you know, like sleep that's the best recovery, and like that is the rest and digest and recover mode that we want to get into as soon as we can after, hitting it hard in the gym.
Right. So is that something I can do as soon as I get into the sauna after my workout, so that I can downgrade as I'm saunaing?
I think that's like one of the best things you can do. Jump into a sauna, do a minute of just slow inhales, slow exhales, really consciously trying to shut your system off from being in this like amped up, jacked up state, and getting into that, I'm here to recover now, I'm done working out, let's repair, let's rebuild.
Yeah. Probably a good thing just to tell yourself, and it'll probably force you to get into that state.
Oh yeah, man. And if we want to get into like the hand wavy bro science, not even bro science, it's like mindset and like the power of the conscious mind, where if we consciously tell ourselves, okay, I'm here to relax, I'm here to recover, the body's going to listen.
Right.
And if you tell it, that's why like being like in a stressful state is actually so harmful. But we can actually pull ourselves out of that, and we can kind of conduct our mindsets by actually, it sounds cheesy, like affirmations and stuff, like I'm recovering, I'm rebuilding, and it's going to have a positive effect.
The brain is so powerful.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't wait for, I said what the next 20 years holds, but like having these kind of conversations on a weekly basis and chatting with whoever it is at that moment and their unique perspective and what they've learned over the course of their lifetime and applying it now in this current state is like, that's what's incredible for me, because, we'll have this conversation, we'll stay in touch, you'll learn something new, I'll see it on your Instagram story or whatever it is, whatever communication medium we're using at that time. And it's like, man, we were doing that years ago and we didn't even realize it, but now there's actually research behind it, and there's 15 other people talking about it on the other popular fitness, health, and wellness podcasts.
Totally, man.
Like that's what's really interesting, because I think there's always iterations, and like innovating is the most important thing. You know that as a founder.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love for you to touch on like the founder mentality as well, because that's like entrepreneurship at its core. You're having to make a million decisions. You're probably stressed out mentally, physically, emotionally. It's probably what led you to exploring other alternative methods for recovery. like a lot to unpack there, but I think there's a crazy gumption that a founder or that someone who starts a business has, and that they're always looking to uncover that next level.
Yeah.
And I think you probably hold a lot of that.
Yeah, because before joining Othership, I was running my own business. It was a consumer packaged goods company called Miura. We made ready-to-drink iced coffee, sold it in Sobeys, Metro, Longo's, Whole Foods, like did the whole circuit and launched it. It was just like, that was like an adrenaline-fueled 4 years of my life that took me through the whole spectrum of stress, elation, depression, like really put me through the ringer until I ended up folding it last year. And what was really interesting is the translation of my mentality as an athlete into business, as someone that absolutely hated losing, like nobody harder on myself than myself, and was always looking for ways to get better.
Right.
So all these biohacks and performance modalities I picked up with sprinting, for example, how do I recover better? Well, you optimize your testosterone cortisol ratio. Well, how do you decrease your cortisol? And that's how I got into meditation and mindfulness and built in like a very disciplined meditation practice that I still carry forward.
Okay.
And then, I'm stressed out, and like as an entrepreneur, I've got all these deadlines to meet. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I have all this pressure, and how can I ground myself a bit? And meditation was that one tool that I was really able to carry forth with me. And there's always like, that gives me a good little baseline, but how do I get more out of like my day to day? Gravitating to like nootropics and smart drugs, and not things like Adderall and Ritalin, but more like alpha GPC to increase the acetylcholine levels in my brain. And like that's the primary neurotransmitter that helps you get that snappy, quick thinking, memory recall. Even chewing nicotine gum as like a way to help enhance the right and left hemispheres of the brain, short-term working memory. So many like just ways. I'm always looking for an edge to just be more productive, and like in the same context of trying to squeeze in 100th of a second out of my training performances, how can I squeeze another bit of productivity out of my days as a founder and entrepreneur? And I guess the shadow side of all of that is, it's like you're burning the candle from both ends. It's like stress, it's these pressures, these contracts, and all these areas of like A, like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and B, you sink money into it, all your time, your identity gets so wrapped up in this, where the idea of success was almost thwarted by the fear of failure. And that's when approaching life and business now, I always check in, like, where are my emotions coming from? Where is this? I'm still very motivated, I'm still very driven, but where is it coming from?
Right.
And I was thinking, why did I have this like die-hard passion to start a business? And well, maybe it was like this idea of success, or maybe it was this, I don't want to be looked at as a failure in the regards of my peers. And that means I need to do maybe something different, or I need to go off the beaten path of a typical career.
Right.
And when I started to look at like how it was more of this like fearful state of acceptance or of identity that drove me into it in many ways, rather than this, it wasn't this benevolent pursuit of like, people need more caffeine, so I'm going to invent this great iced coffee. That was not the case. And I think when there's that lack of altruistic motivation,
right,
that it's going to, for me at least, like I know it was going to peter off. And it got to a point where I even stopped drinking coffee myself because I found other practices to give me energy. But when the business ultimately like met its demise, I was like, I knew it was no longer aligned with me, and it was just so much effort to show up to do something I wasn't passionate about.
Right.
And yeah, man, like that's entrepreneurship is one of those things that just tests you so much. And working at Othership with an amazing group of founders, a team, and a mission that's so devoted to the betterment of humanity on like a very, sounds cliche, making the world a better place, but we truly are through these very well evidenced tools of hot, cold, and breath. It's easy to keep going.
That's the coolest part, is the community aspect. You get to experience this life-altering environment where you're exposed to super hot, cold feelings, I guess I should say, but you do it with a group. And there's like 20, 30 other people there beside you, smiling, going through that same process, dealing with those stresses. That's where I think the coolest part of it is, because it's one thing to go and do that on your own, but it's another thing to have an accountability partner or 25 others that are going through it. Gives you that little bit of extra gumption to say, hey, like, I'm going to get through this 2-minute cold plunge instead of bailing out after a minute when you don't get the same benefits.
Totally, man. And like one of our core values is building belonging. And, you know, humans as these primal creatures, like belonging, being in a tribe, it's in our DNA. We're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be alone, especially after the past 2 years. We've all really learned how harsh that is. Yeah. So people yearn for this connection with others. And, you know, I'm not talking about like a superficial connection on just like going and grabbing a beer and cheering for the Leafs. It's like you want to have a deeper sense of connection with others. Mm-hmm. And I subscribe greatly to this. You know, I'm fascinated by motivation, and I really believe in subscribe to like self-determination theory, which upholds this concepts of what do we want out of life. And we want to feel authentic in who we are. So really embodying our authentic self, not the constructs of what we're meant to be as told by society. We want to feel competent at what we do. Mm-hmm. So everybody's got to be a beginner and suck at something. I think that's beautiful, but we at least want to feel like we're getting better, or at least we're demonstrating some level of excellence in our day-to-day lives. And then the third part of that is we want to feel connected to others. And that's so important to have those three as these like pillars to uphold what it means to live a meaningful life and show up with motivation to keep getting after it no matter what life's throwing at you. Mm-hmm. And I've found that so deeply through not only the team, but the community at Othership. Yeah. And like you said, you go into an ice plunge with other people. It's like, holy crap, not just I did this thing together, we did this hard thing together, and we've just shared in that experience. And what's so fascinating is the science of human bonding and human connections, where the foundation for a shared human connection is you have a shared experience that produces shared physiology, and then a shared physiology is something that people can already just immediately connect on and have a foundation for as it pertains to having a relationship.
Very cool. Yeah, I know. I was looking at that sweater. Relationship, stewardship, partnership, leadership, spaceship?
Othership. Oh, spaceship, friendship, othership. What ship are you building?
We're all building a ship, right?
Yeah. We're building the athlete ship.
Yeah, you are.
Trying to get to the next episode. No, honestly, like that's where I think you guys have unlocked a new opportunity. Like you've got guys like James Harden coming into your facility, use it, and that's like an individual level. But I think people are understanding the benefits now because of people like Andrew Huberman, Joe Rogan, Ben Greenfield, whoever you want to refer to in the moment. But like I said, peeling back those layers of the onion to uncover the true results. And I'm curious from your perspective, what you see in the next 10 years as being like other alternatives to unlocking that next level of performance. You mentioned nicotine gum. Like, I'd love for you to share, like, what did you take before this podcast to ensure that you were firing on all cylinders? Were you talking back nootropics, or were you taking caffeine? Like, what's your pre-podcast schedule?
So actually I had a pretty crazy day. So my whole day was kind of fueled in a fasted state.
Okay.
So
do you fast frequently?
I do. Yeah, okay. Intermittent fasting, except for the days that I get a morning workout in, because I want to have that replenishment immediately. But I had a good 20-hour fast from my last meal last night to first thing I had today.
Okay.
And fasting does give you a beautiful sense of mental clarity. It's
phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. And
for those who haven't tried it, push off your breakfast for 12 hours. If you can go a 16-8, I loved that for a while.
Totally.
It depends on your goals, and don't do it for an extended period of time if you're not used to it. It's we're not doctors. Don't consult us. Yeah. Consult your physician. But like you said, the mental clarity that comes from that, when you're hungry, the biological level is hey, I need food. I'm going to work to find that food. And if you can get comfortable with the fact that, hey, I'm not actually hungry, I'm just feeling the effects of not having food.
And then just drink some water to satiate yourself from hunger, and that's...
Right? But so many people are used to waking up 8 o'clock, have your breakfast at 8:30, lunch at 12, dinner at 5, and that's your meal. You have some snacks in between, but they're not really comfortable with that feeling of being a little hungry.
And that's something that we can, and that's all just programming, right?
Yeah.
Who said that you need to have breakfast is the most important meal of the day?
It's marketing.
It's marketing. So, and that's one of the areas where I do think it's like really taking ownership and sovereignty over our states and deprogramming from this stuff that we're told, like, don't go outside, it's cold out, you'll catch a cold. No, I'm actually upgrading my immunity by exposing myself to the cold. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Is it? Apparently not, actually. So it's like really starting to question this dogma that we've been fed from a young age and evaluate based off of, now empirical evidence, what's actually best for our human state. So fasting is one, just like that's one thing I did today for better performance.
Okay.
Perfectly honest, like microdosing psychedelics is a potent way to enhance your cognitive faculties.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for quite a while now, like experimented with different substances, and that ability to, kind of break out of that mold, right? Out of that programming that we're sort of so used to operating on, and then having these abilities to make connections, to think in ways outside of the box, in the confines of our normal, regular scheduled programming, helps unlock creativity, problem solving, even focusing, where we're less, impulsive to, be distracted by the next thing, or to, go off task and feel like our motivation dwindles. So that's one thing I did today. Did indulge in some nicotine gum.
Nice.
Currently, actually. And pairing with the nicotine gum, so it actually is a substance that acts on that same cholinergic system, so the acetylcholine, which stacking well with alpha GPC, which is a precursor to acetylcholine, and you get like other like choline bitartrate and other forms of choline supplements, but alpha GPC is the most bioavailable of those.
Gotcha.
And other than that, man, like again, I've really been queuing into using my breath, like even just throughout the day, finish a hour-long phone call on Zoom, and like that was exhausting, and then just taking like 2 very long conscious breaths to kind of like a hallmark. That segment is over, gear up for the next.
Yeah, I could definitely use that. I should definitely set a reminder in my phone every hour to
I'll send you a text, man, and I'll just like drop you, hey, Dave, you take your deep breaths.
Yeah.
We'll get you on the breathwork app, and there's tons of cool, just short ones even for, again, like, hey, I'm getting amped up, got like a big workout, let's upregulate the system, let's get after it. Or winding down, I can't sleep. Like there's, again, that shifting of your state through breath is, to me, it's been like, it's my supplement cabinet that used to be this like small supplement store is like slowly gone smaller and smaller because of finding these ways I can just like shift my state with my own faculties. Yeah. And that really adheres to this new philosophy I have approached like self-improvement with, as it pertains to previously reaching for like the supplements or the herb or the cool thing, where it's trying to shift our chemistry to alter our behavior, and instead using our behavior to alter our internal chemistry. So
naturally trying to produce those same results.
Exactly. So trying to take a supplement, or any nootropics to enhance focus and, reduce distractibility, so that our dopamine reward feedback pathways are more conducive for longer durations of work, rather than taking, the stimulants and the tyrosine and all these other nootropics, actually maybe just moving my phone outside the room when I want to get some deep work done is going to help me stay in the zone better. And that's a simple behavior modification that is altering my chemistry and training it to be better at staying focused.
So true. It's the phone. Eric Thomas, who's a motivational speaker who I listen to, he's one of his like quotes in that motivational video is like, some of you, if you put down your phone, would be successful, but you're too damn preoccupied with your phone to do anything. And it's crazy. I was like, it's just profound when you look at how much time we waste on social media, whatever it is. I'm like, it's disgusting. I try and like shut it off because it's part of growing and scaling.
We're fighting the algorithm, man.
Right?
It's and again, it's like that concept of like really reclaiming sovereignty over our state, where I didn't choose to be this impulsively distracted. It's, these algorithms that are designed to make you gravitate back to it, to look for that next thing that'll give you that sense of accomplishment by seeing a cool picture, watching a sports highlight, the girl in the bikini. Like the next thing that your brain's gonna be like, oh, cool, I want more of that. Yeah. Whereas really we want to like have to exert some effort, like sit down and like put some good work in, and then get the reward for being like, I did something right.
Crazy. These technologies, as good as they are also impacting us in a negative fashion. Just we got to keep an eye on it. I also wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't touch on the peptides that you used. And like, I don't know whether you are comfortable sharing, but
totally.
It's pretty phenomenal results that you saw from it. Again, not doctors, consult your physician, but I'd love for you to share like your story with them.
Yeah, this is, I guess, just a hallmark of the level of experimentation that I've taken through my journey as an athlete and just as like a life dude, where these peptides, which are really just like strings of amino acids, you can get some that are more anabolic than others, but it comes in like a vial as a powder. You need to reconstitute it with bacteriostatic water and administer it. You can get them in capsules to take them orally, but the most efficacious way was administering it via needle locally to the injury site. So this specific peptide is called BPC 157. It's really this Wolverine juice in terms of it helps soft tissue regeneration better than anything. So I have used it for a bruised heel pad from playing soccer, a very severely irritated TFCC joint in my wrist, and then most noticeably and recently was a surgery I had for a ruptured pectoral tendon, where these are soft tissues, so your tendons, your ligaments, anything, these collagen matrices that get disrupted through these injuries, and they're building blocks they need to repair. And we can assist that process through taking things like collagen, vitamin C, which promotes collagen synthesis, but then peptides, which are for any athletes that are competing. Please do not use them because they are not approved by WADA. But I started using them post-athletic career because I'm like, okay, like I got nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some brain cells. I'm kidding. Where I had significant success in expediting my healing and my recovery processes through locally and systematically orally taking these peptides. What's also really cool is, so it is actually, I think, naturally produced in our gastric juices in our gut.
Okay.
So it also helps immensely for healing any like leaky gut stuff.
Oh,
which,
interesting.
you know, if you want to get into gut health, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But as it pertains specifically to healing a soft tissue injury, I had my ruptured pectoral tendon. They repaired it, cut me open, screwed the tendon back onto the humerus with these little plastic screws. I was in a sling, and they said, okay, probably like 6 months until you can like be mobile again. And to me, I was like, okay, challenge accepted, guys. Let's go. So slamming collagen, a lot of bone broth, a lot of vitamin C. So naturally using those to enhance the tissue repair, but then also starting to inject these peptides directly into this local region so that it would saturate into that area, and also taking them orally. And that shifted my 6 month to mobility window from post-surgery to 3 months. So literally cutting that time in half. And I would go in for my follow-ups with the surgeon, and they were like blown away. They're like, dude, like you should not be moving like that. Like, what's going on? And I didn't tell them because I don't think they'd be particularly receptive to it. But it's just this, call it alternative modality that I did my research on, did my homework, learned the risks and the benefits, obviously, that were quite compelling to take something like that. And I don't necessarily encourage that level of self-experimentation, but to me, it's always inspiring to find these tools to really like make some quantum leaps ahead in our performance or recovery.
Yeah, there's a ton of people that have talked about peptides, their use, where they can come into play. Again, like for you did your research. You said you spent hours on forums researching pros, cons, weighing it out.
Forums and PubMed too. Like it wasn't just like, a bunch of stairway bros being like, oh man, like blew up my pec bench in 450. But I try to be discerning with my research.
Yeah, and I think you were going into it with the intent to produce a better result for you yourself. And again, you're not competing in a state where it's going to jeopardize your ability to actually be qualified to compete in that. And like, again, if it's half the recovery time, that's phenomenal. And for the way I would look at it is like, hey, I could spend 6 months recovering and probably enter some state of depression from not being able to do the things that I love to do, or I could expedite that process, get back into it, feel incredible, not have any lagging injuries that last post, because we know with surgery there could be other complications. So yeah, I was more so curious. I'm glad you were able to share. Don't take peptides if you are not fully comfortable with the potential ramifications.
Just don't do it unless you got it's pretty cavalier, but to the audience, maybe best to ensure if you're going to that you're working with an absolute professional.
There we go. That's the way we should approach it. Adam, the way we wrap up every episode of the Athletes Podcast is we ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice to the next generation of athletes would be. Obviously, it's not taking peptides. So we'd love to have you, given your experience, knowledge, expertise, share what your biggest piece would be.
Next generation of athletes is an exciting one. I really believe our youth has all the potential to change the world as they need to. And I think it starts with this concept of, as I said, like really taking sovereignty over our minds and our being. And we can do that through things like conscious breathing, where rather than being impulsive and reactive to the novel stressors that come at us in life, if we can take some ownership over our emotions, which we can do by introducing this nervous system regulation with our breath, it's a really potent way to just be a better human.
I love it. Start breathing more.
So yeah, just breathe, take some long breaths. It's simple.
Have you read James Nestor's breath?
I've skimmed through it, yeah.
Skimmed through it.
A lot of good
Great.
research in there.
Nasal versus mouth breathing, just before we wrap up.
Jumping right back into athletic content, so nasal breathing increases your body's endogenous nitric oxide levels. So that's like pre-workouts. What do you want? It's like to increase nitric oxide, to vasodilate, to increase blood flow. Just nasal breathing and humming. That actually, you do that enough, that's going to have a significant increase on your NO production.
Yeah.
So for athletes or for just calming down even.
So I'll be deadlifting 5 plates by the time that happens, right?
Oh yeah, we'll be laughing.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on the episode, man.
Thanks,
Really
brother.
appreciate it.